I'm a 9-to-5er making a junior designer salary, and a girl worth billions just cornered me outside my shoebox apartment. She said it was love at first sight. She said she wouldn't marry anyone but me. She said if I just nodded, she'd give me half of her family's corporate empire. I figured she was either having a psychotic break or I was still asleep. Then she pulled out an Amex Black card and said, "Cool as anything. Just give it a try. It's not like it'll cost you anything." Things have gotten so weird that even billionaires have to be the one simping now. One, I'm spectacularly, painfully ordinary. I'm a designer at a mid-sized firm, staring at a monitor all day, tweaking layouts until my eyes glaze over. I rent a crumbling walk-up on the outskirts of the city, with a commute long enough to get through half a novel. My life is a stagnant pond. A ripple would be front-page news. Until the night I worked late, dragging my body home sometime after midnight. Parked in front of my building was a sports car with sleek, aggressive lines. Its colors so loud it looked like it was screaming at the beat-up rental scooters scattered around it. I didn't think much of it, just tried to squeeze past. But a door swung open. A single leg emerged, clad in a stiletto heel, the ankle impossibly slender. And then I saw Sophia. She was wearing a dress that looked like it cost more than my car, leaning against her McLaren, staring right at me. The hazy glow of the street lamp enveloped her in an unreal halo. "Leo?" she asked. Her voice was cool and crisp, with a hint of uncertainty. I froze, mentally flipping through my entire catalog of acquaintances. No one named Sophia. Definitely no one who looked like that. "Do I know you?" "Sophia Wallace," she said, walking toward me. As she got closer, I caught a faint, clean scent, less like perfume and more like fresh-cut greenery. "I've been waiting for 3 hours." I was even more lost. "Have we met?" "We have now," she said, the corner of her mouth twitching into a tiny smile. "I saw your design portfolio. The Lakeshore Echoes proposal for the community center. That was the project I'd poured countless sleepless nights in the last year. We lost the bid. It amounted to nothing. And I loved it," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "So I want to ask you out." I nearly choked on my own spit. I've lived for over 2 decades, and this was the first time a woman had ever cornered me at my own front door to confess her feelings, let alone a supermodel gorgeous woman who drove a supercar and had a name that sounded like it belonged on a yacht. If this were a novel, I'd have thrown it at the wall for being too unrealistic. "Miss Wallace," I said, trying to keep my voice even, "I think you have the wrong person. Or, did you lose a game of truth or dare?" She didn't smile. Her eyes were fixed on me, so serious it was starting to freak me out. Do I look like I'm joking? No. And that was the terrifying part. "What?" I asked, my voice flat. "A feeling," she answered simply, then added, "You have this quiet strength about you." I looked down at my faded t-shirt and worn-out jeans. The only thing I was feeling was quiet poverty. I have no money, no connections. I just push pixels around a screen, I said, trying to snap her out of it. "I know," she said, her tone unchanged. "I don't need money, right?" There was no comeback for that. That night, I practically fled into my apartment. I slammed the door shut, leaning my back against the cold metal, and could still hear the McLaren's engine roar to life before fading into the distance. The air in my apartment seemed to hold the ghost of that clean, green scent. I chugged a glass of cold water, trying to get grip. What the hell was happening? Quiet strength, more like the quiet desperation of being broke. 2, I assumed it was just a bizarre, one-off encounter. A story for a therapist someday. The next day, it was back to the usual grind, squeezing onto the L train, then staring at my monitor, trying to create a shade of vibrant gray for a client who couldn't make up his mind. In the afternoon, the receptionist peeked into the design pit, her expression a mix of confusion and awe. "Leo, someone's here for you." "In the conference room." Figuring it was a client, I grabbed my laptop and headed over. I pushed open the door and saw her again. Sophia. She was dressed more casually today, but she still radiated an out-of-place energy that made our cheap conference room look even dingier. A cup of coffee sat untouched in front of her while she scrolled through her phone. Hearing the door, she looked up and gave me a slight nod. "Done for the day? Let's get dinner." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. I could feel the curious gazes of my coworkers boring into my back. My scalp prickled. "I'm not done yet." "I'll wait," she said, then looked back down at her phone, as if waiting for hours for a junior designer was a perfectly normal Tuesday. I had no choice but to retreat to my desk, feeling the weight of a dozen stares. My manager walked by, clapping me on the shoulder with a conspiratorial wink. "All right, Miller. Holding out on us, huh?" I forced a pained smile. He had no idea. By the time I finally finished my work, it was well past 6. True to her word, Sophia was still in the conference room, her patience seemingly infinite. As we walked out of the office building, I felt my nerves fraying. "Miss Wallace, what exactly are you trying to do?" "Ask you out," she repeated, then pointed to a much more understated, but still clearly expensive, sedan parked at the curb. "What do you feel like eating? I have reservations at Aria." I'd heard of that place. The price of an appetizer there could probably cover my electricity bill. "No thanks," I said flatly. "Not my kind of food." She raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "Then what do you want to eat?" "A food truck," I said, a little defensively. "A test." "Okay," she agreed without hesitation. 10 minutes later, we were sitting on mismatched plastic stools in front of a taco truck in an alley behind my office. Sophia, in her $1,000 dress, looked comically out of place and a little awkward on the low stool, but she didn't complain. She watched me rinse our plastic forks in a cup of hot water, a habit I'd picked up from somewhere. "You come here often?" she asked. "Yeah, it's cheap and it's good." I pushed the cleaned utensils toward her. She copied me, her movements clumsy. The steaming plates of tacos arrived, glistening with salsa and onions. She ate slowly, the spice making the tip of her nose bead with sweat and her cheeks flush, but she didn't stop. "It's okay," I asked. "Yeah," she breathed, fanning her mouth. "It's very authentic." Watching her, eyes watering from the jalapenos, I suddenly felt like this billionaire heiress wasn't quite so untouchable. But in the next second, she wiped her mouth with a napkin, looked me dead in the eye, and said with utter seriousness, "Leo, I think we're a good match." I almost choked on a piece of carne asada. "A good match? How?" "You're grounded, and I'm not impulsive. You're straightforward, and I hate complications." She listed off like she was analyzing a business proposal. "And that's it. Also," she paused, her gaze locking with mine, "when you look at me, your eyes aren't filled with greed or calculation." I was speechless. That's because I still had no clue what she saw in me. After dinner, she insisted on driving me home. When we pulled up to my building, I didn't get out right away. "Sophia," I said, using her first name for the first time, "you're an incredible person. You could have anyone you want. Don't waste your time on me." She turned to face me, the streetlights catching in her eyes. "Waste my time?" She let out a small, soft laugh. "I consider it an investment." "An investment? In me?" I scoffed. "No," she said, shaking her head, her gaze steady. "An investment in my intuition. I trust my gut." In that moment, I knew, with absolute certainty, that she wasn't playing games. She was serious, and that seriousness terrified me more than anything else. It felt like a rat, comfortable scurrying in the shadows, had just been shoved into a spotlight. I had no idea what to do. 3 Sophia started appearing in my life with a directness that was almost brutal. Every day, like clockwork, I'd get a message. The content was painfully simple. "Morning. You too. Or have you eaten?" "Yes." My replies were dismissive, but she didn't seem to care. The next day, she'd do it all again. She would show up when I was working late, carrying an insulated food container. It was soup from her family's private chef. She'd explained, and he'd made extra. The elegant container, when opened, would release the aroma of some fancy butternut squash and sage soup, a stark contrast to the cold, half-eaten burrito on my desk. The looks from my coworkers evolved from curiosity to a sort of knowing, envious smirk. Only I knew how awkward it all was. It felt like wearing shoes that were 2 sizes too small. Every step was a painful pinch. I tried to avoid her. I leave work early or slip out the back door. It never worked. She always found me, or she'd just be waiting in her car outside my apartment. Her approach was humble, her patience astonishing. One time, I finally snapped. "Sophia, don't you get tired of this?" She was standing in my building's dim hallway, the motion-activated light casting shadows across her face. "Yes," she admitted without hesitation. "But it's worth it. What is it you even like about me? Tell me, and I'll change it." She was silent for a few seconds. Does there have to be a reason? Yes, I insisted. Otherwise, none of this feels real. She took a step closer. So close I could see the individual strands of her eyelashes. If you need a reason, she said, her voice barely a whisper, it's probably because you're the only person who doesn't look at me and see the Wallace heiress. I froze. In your eyes, I think I'm just Sophia, she said with a small, self-deprecating smile. Even if you spend most of your time running away from me. Something deep inside me shifted. It was true. From the very beginning, I had been so intimidated by who she was that I'd immediately labeled her as otherworldly and frantically tried to draw a line between us. I'd forgotten that beneath all the money and the fancy cars, she was just a person who got teary-eyed from spicy food, who fumbled while trying to be normal, who stubbornly waited for me in a dingy hallway. But that flicker of connection was quickly extinguished by the cold, hard reality. The gap between us was just too vast, an uncrossable canyon. Sophia, we're from two different worlds, I said, the words tasting like a cheap movie script, but feeling painfully true. There's only one world, she replied, her eyes locked on mine, her voice calm but firm. You're the one who drew the line in your head. Once again, I had nothing to say. This woman had a way of dismantling all my excuses. The turning point came on a weekend. I got a call from my hometown, a tiny dot on the map a few hours from Chicago. My mom was in the hospital. It was her old heart condition acting up again. She needed a minor procedure. It wasn't outrageously expensive, but for my already anemic bank account, it was a mountain. I scraped together everything I had, checking every account, but I was still short. My pride, stupid as it was, kept me from asking my friends for a loan. As I was stewing in my financial panic, my phone rang. It was Sophia. I usually ignored her calls, but that day, for some reason, I answered. Where you up to? Her end was quiet. I rubbed my temples, my voice thick with exhaustion. Nothing. She paused. You don't sound right. What's wrong? It's nothing, really. I didn't want to tell her. Leo, her voice sharpened. Don't lie to me. Maybe it was the stress, my emotional walls crumbling, but I heard myself mumble, my mom's in the hospital. I need money. I regretted it the second the words were out. It sounded like I was trying to guilt her, to hint for a handout. The line went silent for a few beats. Then she said, send me your account info. No, I shot back immediately. I can handle it. How much? She asked, ignoring my protest. Seriously, don't worry about it. Sophia, Leo. She cut me off, her voice laced with an authority I hadn't heard before. This isn't the time to be proud. The account number. That commanding tone sparked a rebellious fire in me. I said, I don't need it. I snapped. Silence again. I felt a pang of regret and was about to hang up. But then her voice came back, softer, tinged with a weary resignation. Okay, I won't give you money. But can you just tell me what hospital she's in? I just want to see if your mom is okay. I couldn't refuse a request like that. I sighed and told her the name of the small-town community hospital. I'm on my way, she said, and hung up. 3 hours later, she appeared at the door of my mom's drab hospital room. She looked tired from the drive, carrying a basket of expensive organic fruit. But there wasn't a trace of disgust on her face at the worn-out surroundings. She introduced herself to my mom as my friend in a warm, natural way. She didn't stay long. Her manners were impeccable. And at some point, she quietly went to the front desk and prepaid a portion of the hospital bill, just enough to solve my immediate problem without making me feel like a charity case. As she walked me out of the hospital, night had fallen. I'll pay you back, I said. Whenever, she replied, not pressing the issue. Your mom is really sweet. Yeah. A comfortable silence settled between us, punctuated by the distant barking of a dog in the quiet country night. Leo, she said, stopping suddenly. I'm really happy today. Happy about what? That when you were in trouble, she said, looking at me with a soft smile in her eyes. You finally let me in, like a star suddenly igniting in the night sky. My heart skipped a beat. After coming back from my hometown, my attitude towards Sophia inevitably softened. It's hard to keep a wall up when someone has shown you that kind of kindness. She seemed to sense the change, and her approach, while still direct, became more nuanced. It was no longer just about bringing me soup. She started integrating herself into the finer details of my life. For example, after I complained that my old computer was lagging and slowing down my rendering work, she showed up at my door the next day with a top-of-the-line, custom-built PC rig. The look on my face must have been priceless. "This is way too much. I can't take it," I said, blocking the doorway. "It's a tool," she said breezily. "A better tool means better efficiency. You'll make more money and pay me back sooner." She always had a way of framing things that left me no room to argue. In the end, the technological beast was installed in my tiny apartment, taking up most of the space on my wobbly old desk. The boot up was instantaneous. My rendering times were cut in half. I had to admit, the joys of the wealthy were not entirely without merit. She also started coincidentally having extra tickets to things she thought I might like. Musicals, art exhibits, even a show for a niche indie rock band at a local venue. At first, I refused, but she would say things like, "The tickets are non-refundable, and it's a shame to waste them." Or, "I heard this band is amazing. We could both use a break." After a few of these outings, I realized she had excellent taste. The events are always right up my alley. In the dark, crowded concert venue, with the music vibrating through the floor, she stood beside me. She seemed less distant, swaying slightly to the rhythm. The strobing lights painted her face in fleeting flashes of color. In that moment, there was no heiress and no broke designer. Just two people lost in the music. During the band's biggest hit, a raw, screaming love song, the crowd surged. She leaned in close, her warm breath tickling my ear. "Leo." The music was too loud. "What?" I yelled back. She looked at me, her eyes shining in the dark, and just shook her head, a small smile playing on her lips. A strange, fluttering feeling started in my chest. Her presence in my life was becoming a new kind of normal. I got used to her daily texts, the weekend outings, the faint, clean scent that followed her. I even started to look forward to whatever surprise she'd come up with next. My body seemed to understand before my brain did. One afternoon, we were crossing the street when a delivery guy on an e-bike blew through a red light, swerving right at her. Without thinking, I yanked her back, pulling her hard against my chest. She was so light, and for a second, all I could register was her warmth and that familiar scent. My heart was pounding against my ribs, or maybe it was hers. The bike sped off. I let her go immediately, a wave of awkwardness washing over me. She didn't say anything, but I saw the tips of her ears turn pink. We walked the rest of the way in silence. The air between us felt thick, charged. I knew, with absolute certainty, that something had changed. The real breakthrough happened after a massive screw-up at work. I was in charge of a major design project, and right before the final submission, I discovered a critical structural flaw. If it went out as it was, it would cause huge problems down the line during construction. It was already the end of the day, and the client needed it first thing in the morning. I was alone in the office, pulling an all-nighter, completely stressed out and feeling my career flashing before my eyes. A thunderstorm started raging outside, the lights in the office flickering ominously. The sense of isolation and pressure was crushing. My phone rang. It was Sophia. "Done with work?" she asked. I stared at the mess of lines on my screen and ran a hand through my hair in frustration. "No, I screwed something up. Working late." "Is it bad?" "Yeah, it's an all-nighter, for sure." She paused. "Have you eaten?" "Not hungry." "Send me your location," she said. I didn't think about it. I just sent her the office address and went back to my frantic revisions. I don't know how much time passed, but the office door creaked open. Sophia was standing there, her hair and shoulders soaked with rain, clutching a large insulated bag. She looked a little disheveled, but her eyes were bright. What are you doing here?" I stammered. "Dinner delivery," she said, walking in and placing the bag on my desk. She unzipped it and took out several containers. It wasn't takeout from a restaurant. It was home-cooked food, braised short ribs, roasted vegetables, and a container of soup, all still steaming. "You made this?" I asked in disbelief. "MHM," she hummed, handing me a fork. "Try it." I took a bite. It was actually incredible. "How did you?" "I looked up a recipe," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. It wasn't hard. I looked at her damp hair clinging to her face, and felt a lump form in my throat. "It's pouring out there. You didn't have to come. You said you were stressed," she said, looking at me. I thought maybe food would help. In that instant, every single wall I had built up against her came crashing down. I lowered my head and ate, my eyes stinging. She didn't say anything else. She just pulled up a chair, opened her own laptop, and started working. "What are you doing?" "Keeping you company," she said, typing away at an email. Working alone all night is a good way to drive yourself crazy. The office fell quiet, filled only by the sound of my furious keyboard clicks and the occasional tap of her trackpad. The storm raged on outside, but the suffocating loneliness I'd felt earlier was gone. In its place was a strange, unexpected feeling of peace and warmth. Sometime in the dead of night, I couldn't fight it anymore and fell asleep, slumped over my desk. In my hazy, dreamlike state, I felt someone gently drape a jacket over my shoulders. I heard a soft sigh, tinged with something that sounded like affection. Idiot. I wasn't sure she was talking about me or herself. When I woke up, the sky outside was beginning to lighten. The design was fixed. The files were ready. Sophia was gone, but her laptop was closed neatly on the desk. Her jacket was still wrapped around my shoulders, carrying her faint, familiar scent. Next to my keyboard was a warm cup of coffee and a sticky note. Her handwriting was elegant. "Take a break when you're done. Don't work yourself to death." I stared at that note for a long time, my heart feeling full and soft. I picked up my phone and sent her a text. "Thank you. How can I get your jacket back to you?" She replied almost instantly. "Give it to me next time we see each other." A second text followed immediately. "Or you could just keep it, so you don't forget me." I looked at the screen, and for the first time I smiled. A real, genuine smile. Was this heiress actually trying to flirt with me? After that night, my relationship with Sophia entered a new, delicate phase. I stopped actively avoiding her, and she eased up on her relentless pursuit. We started a date like a normal couple, seeing movies, getting dinner, exploring the city. The places we went, however, remained a study in contrasts. She'd take me to a rooftop restaurant with a month-long waiting list, and I'd take her to a noisy street festival with the best fried chicken sandwiches. She knew which fork to use for every course. I taught her the most efficient way to peel crawfish. She would tell me stories about the bizarre world of high finance and corporate politics she inhabited, and I would complain about my nightmare clients and my cheap boss. We were building a bridge between two completely different worlds, and it felt dangerously exciting. Physical touch became more natural. We'd hold hands crossing the street. I'd put my arm around her in crowded places, and we'd hug goodbye. But we never kissed. It was like an unspoken agreement, a line we both hesitated to cross. I knew what I was afraid of. I was terrified that if I let myself fall completely, I'd never be able to find my way back. I was scared that this beautiful, fragile thing we were building was just an illusion, and she, it seemed, was waiting for me to let my guard down completely. One Saturday afternoon, we were watching a movie in my tiny apartment. We used the computer she'd given me. The screen was huge, the picture perfect. It was an old romantic movie with a slow, gentle pace. Halfway through, it started to rain outside, the drops pattering against the window pane. The only light in the room was a small lamp, casting a warm, dim glow. On screen, the main characters finally kissed, the music swelling. The atmosphere in the room shifted, becoming thick with unspoken tension. I could smell the faint scent of her hair, feel the warmth radiating from her body next to me. She rested her head on my shoulder, so lightly it felt like she might pull away at any moment. My arm felt stiff, my heart hammering in my chest. The air was still. I glanced down and saw her eyelashes fluttering like a butterfly's wings. Her lips were so close. All I had to do was tilt my head. Just as my lips were about to meet hers, she shifted just a fraction of an inch. The kiss landed on the corner of her mouth, light as a feather. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a complex mix of emotions I couldn't decipher. Longing, hesitation, and something else I couldn't name. "Leo," she whispered, her voice husky. "Yeah." Her lips parted as if to say something, but then she closed them and simply buried her face in the crook of my neck. Her warm breath ghosted across my skin. I had no idea what was happening in the movie anymore. All I could hear was the rain and the sound of our unsteady breathing. I could feel her nervousness mirroring my own. That unfinished kiss hung between us, A pebble dropped into a still lake, the ripples spreading out endlessly. Was she scared? But of what? Was she afraid I would pull back, or afraid that she herself would be disappointed? Sophia started introducing me to her friends. Not the trust fund kids from her inner circle, but a more artsy, grounded group, a gallery owner, an indie fashion designer, a musician. So you can see my not-so-heiress side, she'd explained. The get-together was at a cafe with a garden patio, the vibe relaxed and casual. Her friends were cool and eccentric, but welcoming. They were curious about me, but didn't pry. It was clear they genuinely liked Sophia, teasing her with an easy familiarity. Sophia used to be the most untouchable one in our group. I can't believe she fell for a straight-laced guy like you. A woman with a sharp, black bob named Lexi said to me with a laugh. Sophia nudged her with her foot, a faint blush on her cheeks. I just smiled. Later, I went inside to use the restroom. On my way back, I overheard their voices coming from the patio. It was Lexi and Sophia. So are you serious about this, Soph? I mean, you brought him to meet us, Lexi was saying. Yeah, Sophia's reply was quiet. He seems like a great guy, really solid. But your family. The rest of the sentence was lost to the breeze. But I heard the most important part, your family. My stomach dropped. Of course, no matter how much we tried to ignore it, that reality was always there, looming between us. On the drive back, I was behind the wheel, and she was quiet in the passenger seat. Tired? I asked. No, she said, staring at the blur of city lights. After a moment, she asked, Leo, and this is a hypothetical. If my family didn't approve of us, what would you do? My heart clenched. It was the question I'd been dreading. I gripped the steering wheel, my eyes fixed on the road. It would be normal for them not to approve. And then what? She turned to look at me, her expression unreadable in the dark. Then, I paused, my throat suddenly dry. It would be up to you. Up to me how? It would be your choice, I said, the words feeling both honest and cruel. Sophia, I can work hard, but there are some gaps you can't close with hard work alone. The final decision would have to be yours. She didn't say anything. The silence in the car felt heavy enough to suffocate. After a long time, she finally whispered, I see. What did she see? She didn't elaborate. That night, when I dropped her off, she leaned over before getting out of the car and gave me a quick, soft kiss on the cheek. It was there and gone in a second. Drive safe, she said, and then she was out of the car, disappearing through the grand entrance of her apartment building. I watched her go, my mind a tangled mess. Was that kiss a reassurance? Or was it a goodbye? Life seemed to return to normal, but the conversation about her family had planted a seed of doubt in my mind. I started obsessively Googling her family's company. It was a vast, sprawling empire. I'd see her father in financial news articles, a stern-faced man, always pictured next to headlines about acquisitions and market caps. It was a world I couldn't even begin to comprehend. And Sophia was one of its heirs. And me, I was a designer whose biggest ambition was to save up enough for a down payment on a one-bedroom condo. That realization chipped away at the fragile confidence I had started to build. I became hypersensitive. During one date, she took a business call. Her tone shifted, becoming formal and detached in a way I'd never heard. Understood. I'll handle it. Price is not the issue. I need the fastest possible turnaround. You keep an eye on that end. Report back to me as soon as you hear anything. She hung up, saw me watching her, and offered a small smile. Work stuff. Annoying. In that moment, the chasm between us felt miles wide. An annoying work problem for her probably involved a sum of money I couldn't earn in a lifetime. She started to talk less about her world, trying to focus more on us. She'd ask me about the technical details of my work and offer suggestions. Her advice was often endearingly naive, a little let them eat cake, but I could see she was trying to understand my life. But her deliberate avoidance of her own life made me feel worse, like a constant reminder that our relationship was something fragile that needed to be protected. By her, that was what love was supposed to feel like. One Friday night, we were watching a movie at my place, sharing a bottle of wine. The mood was relaxed, the alcohol making everything feel warm and fuzzy. We started kissing. It wasn't like the hesitant, barely there kisses before. This was deep and consuming, filled with a pent-up longing that bordered on desperation. Clothes started coming off. our skin cool in the evening air. Her body was softer than I'd imagined, and the feeling of her skin against mine was electric. Everything was perfect, hazy, and passionate, until the last moment. I reached for the nightstand, fumbling in the dark, and found nothing. I wasn't prepared. She must have felt the shift, her body tensing slightly. In the darkness, her breath was hot against my ear, her voice thick with desire. "It's okay. I can." "No," I gasped, forcing myself to stop. I rolled on my back, covering my eyes with my arm. "Why?" she whispered, propping herself up to look down at me. "It wouldn't be right. For you." My voice was raw. What if she got pregnant? It would force her into an even more impossible situation. I couldn't be that selfish. Silence stretched out in the dark room. After what felt like an eternity, I felt her move closer, wrapping her arms around me in a gentle hug. "Leo," she murmured, resting her cheek on my chest. "You think too much." "I'm scared," I admitted for the first time, the words feeling heavy and true. Scared of letting her down, scared of the responsibility, scared that in the end, I would lose her anyway. She didn't say anything. She just held me tighter. And in that moment, I felt it. Something between us had fundamentally shifted. It wasn't about our bodies anymore. It was about our hearts. Through her skin and my ribs, I could feel the steady, reassuring beat of her heart, calming the frantic rhythm of my own. 10-inch, we need to meet. The text was from an unknown number. The tone was a command, not a request. It included a time and the name of an exclusive private club. It was signed with a single letter, W. Sophia's father, Mr. Wallace. The day of reckoning had arrived. I didn't tell Sophia. At the appointed time, I put on the only suit I owned, which still felt cheap and out of place. The club was hushed and opulent, the staff polite, but with scrutinizing eyes that made my skin crawl. I was led to a private tea room. Mr. Wallace sat there, preparing tea with practiced, deliberate movements. He radiated an aura of immense power. He looked even more intimidating than in the news articles, with sharp, calculating eyes that seemed to see right through me. "Sit," he said without looking up, gesturing to the seat across from him. I sat, my back ramrod straight. He poured a cup of tea and pushed it toward me. "Try it. It's a rare blend." I picked up the delicate cup, my hand surprisingly steady. The tea was fragrant, but I couldn't taste a thing. "Do you know why I asked you here?" he began, getting straight to the point. "Because of Sophia," I said. He nodded, finally placing his gaze on me. It was cold and clinical. "Sophia is my only daughter. I love her very much, and I want her life to be as smooth as possible." I stayed silent, waiting. "You're a decent young man. Grounded, talented," he said, his tone shifting. "But marriage is about compatibility, and that often means coming from the same background. This isn't some outdated prejudice. It's a practical way to minimize friction. When you force two people from different worlds together, life becomes very difficult for both of them." "I understand your concerns, sir," I said, keeping my voice as level as I could. "But I believe that love is between two people." "Naive," he stated flatly. "Her world isn't just about feelings. It's about family, responsibility, the livelihoods of thousands of employees. Do you have any idea the kind of pressure she's under? Can you help her carry that burden? Or will you just be a liability?" The word liability hit me like a physical blow. "I would work hard to." "Work hard." He let out a dry, pitying chuckle. "Some things can't be earned through hard work. Like resources, connections, the kind of strategic thinking you only learn by being born into it. Do you have any of those things?" I didn't. I had nothing to say. "Name your price," he said, losing patience and laying his cards on the table. "Leave Sophia. Money, a position at a company. I can arrange whatever you want. Enough to let you skip decades of struggle and live a very comfortable life." Looking at this man who could so easily manipulate lives with his wealth and power, a surge of anger rose in me. But it was quickly drowned by a wave of helplessness. Because he wasn't wrong. I took a deep breath and set the teacup down. "Mr. Wallace, I appreciate the offer, but Sophia is not for sale." He raised an eyebrow, looking genuinely surprised. "Young man, pride won't solve your problems. I'll give you 3 days to think it over." He stood up, ready to leave. "I don't need 3 days." I stood up too, meeting his gaze directly. "I can give you my answer now. I love Sophia. The kind of love where I want to build a future with her. And unless she is the one to tell me to leave, I'm not going anywhere. Mr. Wallace stared at me, his eyes like daggers. After a long moment, a strange, unreadable smile touched his lips. Very well. You got guts. I hope you don't live to regret it. He turned and walked out. I stood there, my palms slick with sweat, my legs feeling weak. I didn't move until a staff member came in and politely asked me to leave. Walking out of that gilded cage and into the bright, unforgiving sunlight, I pulled out my phone and stared at Sophia's contact picture, my heart in turmoil. Had I just made the right move? Or had I just pushed her away for good? 11 days after meeting Sophia's father were a blur. On the surface, everything was normal. I went to work. I texted with Sophia, but I felt like I was walking around with a giant weight on my chest. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Sophia to confront me about the meeting or to deliver the final verdict. But she didn't. She texted me about her day and asked if I want to see a new architectural exhibit that weekend. Her calm was more unsettling than an argument would have been. Was this the quiet before the storm? That Saturday, I went to the museum. Sophia was already there, leaning against a pillar by the entrance, dressed in a simple white shirt and jeans. The sun caught in her hair, making her glow. She saw me and waved with a smile. In that instant, a thought shot through my mind. To hell with the money, to hell with her father. I just want to hold her. And so I did. I walked straight to her, and in front of everyone, I pulled her into a hug. I held on tight, as if she might vanish if I let go. She was startled for a second, then relaxed into my embrace, wrapping her arms around my waist and resting her head on my shoulder. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice muffled. "Nothing," I said, my own voice rough with emotion. "I just really needed to hug you." We stood there like that for a full minute, the museum crowds flowing around us. Neither of us spoke. I could feel her heartbeat against my chest, slowly sinking with mine. During the exhibit, I could barely focus. My eyes kept drifting back to her. She was completely absorbed, her profile soft and thoughtful as she pointed out small details to me. When she talked about design, her eyes lit up. Her father's words echoed in my head. Can you help her carry that burden? Maybe in this one small part of her world, I could. We could speak the same language. The word liability stung me all over again. After we left the museum, it was still early. "Want to get some coffee?" she suggested. We found a quiet cafe nearby. After we ordered, a brief silence fell between us. I knew this was it. I took a breath, steeling myself to bring it up. "My father paid you a visit, didn't he?" she said first, her voice calm. My head snapped up. She was holding her water glass, her knuckles white, but her expression was steady. "You knew." "MHM," she nodded. "He told me." My stomach sank. "What did he tell you?" "He said you were stubborn, that you turned down his offer." She looked at me, her gaze intense. "And that you told him you would never leave unless I was the one who told you to go." My throat felt tight. And then I had a fight with him," she said, a humorless smile touching her lips. "A huge one." I stared at her, stunned. "I told him that my life is my own to decide. Who I love, who I'm with, that's my choice." Her voice was quiet, but carried an incredible weight. I told him if he ever tried to interfere like that again, I would walk away from the family business and start my own company. I was speechless. Walk away? The scale of what she would be giving up was unimaginable. You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." She cut me off, her eyes unwavering. "Leo, I'm not making a sacrifice for you. I'm fighting for myself, for the right to choose my own life and to have the things I actually want." She paused, her voice dropping but growing even clearer. "And you are what I want." The city buzzed outside the cafe window. Soft music played over the speakers, but all I could hear was her voice, and all I could see was the tiny, stunned reflection of myself in her eyes. All this time, I thought I was the one fighting, trying to climb my way toward her world. I never realized that she was fighting just as hard, clearing her own path to get to me. "Are you serious?" I heard myself ask, my voice hoarse. "Do I look like I'm joking?" she shot back, a hint of her familiar, exasperated tone returning. No, she never did. It was just that I had always underestimated her resolve, and I had underestimated my own worth in her heart. "But leaving your family's company, that's huge." "Yeah, it is," she said, taking a sip of coffee with practiced grace. "Which means you're going to have to take responsibility for me." I might be a pauper soon, All because of you, she said, a playful glint in her eye. I guess I'll have to rely on you to support me now, Mr. Designer. I looked at her, at the brave front she was putting on, and saw the flicker of vulnerability beneath it. She was taking a gamble too. A gamble on me, on us. The massive weight I've been carrying on my chest for so long suddenly shattered. In its place, a hot, powerful wave of emotion rushed through me. I reached across the small table and took her hand. It was cool to the touch. She flinched for a second, then squeezed my hand back hard. Okay, I said, looking her straight in the eye, speaking each word with conviction. I'll support you. 3 simple words, but saying them felt like the most solid, real thing I had ever done. Her eyes instantly welled up with tears, but a huge, brilliant smile spread across her face. You'd better start working hard then. I'm very expensive. I will, I said, rubbing my thumb over her knuckles. But before you go completely broke, Miss Wallace, can I get a little advance on my benefits? What benefits? For instance, I leaned forward, lowering my voice, a formal official kiss. Her face flushed crimson. Her eyes darted around, but she didn't pull away. There are people watching. I don't care. I leaned in and gently, finally kissed her. The scent of coffee hung in the air, and her lips were impossibly soft. It wasn't like any of our other near misses. This was slow and deep and full of promise. When we pulled apart, we were both a little breathless. Her cheeks were pink, her eyes shining. She gave me a playful glare that had no heat behind it. Jerk. It's not being a jerk if it's my girlfriend, I said, feeling a surge of confidence I'd never felt before. Girlfriend. The word sounded right. For the first time, it felt absolutely, unequivocally right. She smiled, a real, dazzling smile, and looked down, the blush spreading to her ears. Okay. A beam of sunlight cut through the window and landed on our joined hands. Warm and bright. The standoff with Sophia's father seemed to have reached an unexpected truce. Sophia didn't actually leave her family, but her firm stance had drawn a clear boundary. We heard nothing more from her father. Whether it was a tacit approval or he was just biding his time, we didn't know. But Sophia and I made a conscious choice not to dwell on that heavy world. We fell into the honeymoon phase of our relationship. Like any normal couple, we reveled in the small, sweet moments of being in love. I'd take a detour after work to buy her a tiramisu from her favorite bakery. She'd stay up with me while I was on a deadline, pretending to watch mindless reality TV on my tablet, occasionally looking up to ask, "Almost done?" We'd wander through the grocery store, arguing over whether to have hot pot or stir-fry for dinner, usually settling it with a game of rock, paper, scissors. We tried to cook together in my tiny kitchen, making a colossal mess, laughing at each other's flour-dusted faces, and ultimately ordering pizza. One Friday night, we were curled up on the couch, watching an old movie. It was a heartwarming film, and halfway through, she fell asleep against my chest, her breathing even and deep. I looked down at her long eyelashes, like tiny fans resting on her cheeks. My heart felt like it was melting. In the movie, the hero told the heroine, "Meeting you is the luckiest thing that ever happened to me." I gently touched her cheek and whispered, "Me too." Her eyes remained closed, but she snuggled deeper into my arms and made a soft, sleepy sound. She'd been awake after all. The apartment was filled with a quiet, peaceful warmth. "Leo," she said softly. "Yeah, I think we should move." I blinked. "Move?" I mentioned. She looked up at me, her eyes sparkling. "Let's find a bigger place. One with a bright kitchen that can fit a double-door fridge and a balcony where we can grow flowers." She described it with a dreamy, hopeful tone. "What's wrong with this place?" I asked, looking around the small apartment that held so many of our recent memories. "Nothing, but we could do better," she said, her gaze steady. "I want a real home for the two of us. A real home for the two of us." The words were like a sugar cube dropped into my heart, dissolving slowly, spreading sweetness through my entire body. "Okay," I heard myself say. "Let's find one together." She smiled and rested her head back on my chest with a contented sigh. "It doesn't have to be huge, just cozy, whatever you want." In that moment, for the first time, the idea of a future was no longer a vague, anxiety-inducing concept. It was a clear, tangible picture, filled with the comforting details of a shared life. I knew there would still be challenges ahead, but as long as she was by my side, I wasn't afraid of any of them. After deciding to move in together, we spent our weekends apartment hunting. Our budget was tight, so we focused on older neighborhoods near my office. Sophia's standards were much more grounded than I'd expected. She didn't care if a building was old. She cared about good natural light, if the neighbors seemed friendly, and if the kitchen layout was practical. "My oven could go right here," she'd say, excitedly mapping out a space in a cramped kitchen. "You bake?" I asked, surprised. "I can learn," she said with a confident tilt of her chin. "I might be a natural." I couldn't help but smile at her optimism. We saw several places, but none felt quite right. Either the rent was too high, or the place was falling apart. One evening, as the sun was setting, we were leaving a top-floor apartment that had a small attic room. The place was old, but the skylight in the attic was magical, letting the golden light pour in. We walked down the street of the old neighborhood, the sidewalks lined with tall sycamore trees, neither of us saying a word. "Tired?" I asked her. "A little," she said, rubbing her leg. "But it was fun. Apartment hunting is fun." "MHM," she nodded, turning to look at me. "Because we're planning our future." My heart felt light as a feather. "Sophia, yeah. Meeting you. You're the kind of person that makes me believe someone really can cross worlds, just to find you and love you." She stopped walking and turned to face me. The golden light of the setting sun framed her silhouette, making her look impossibly gentle. She stood on her toes and gave me a soft kiss on the corner of my mouth. "That's my line," she whispered. "You're the one who showed me that love could be this simple, this real." We held hands and continued walking, our shadows stretching out long behind us. Suddenly, the meaning of home became crystal clear. It wasn't about the size of the apartment or the fancy furniture. It was knowing that at the end of the day, there was a light left on for you, and when you opened the door, someone would be there to smile and say, "You're home."